Hey, thanks for checking out Nuts and Bolts with Tone, and welcome to my channel. Today we have a 2008 I think this is a F350, F450. It's a cab chassis. But anyways, it's a 6.4 Power Stroke. In this video, I have a leaking timing cover, and it's leaking oil. And I'm going to show you how to remove that timing cover. And it's not too bad. It's just you can't see anything until you get tearing it down. So let's get into it. Let me show you how to take this timing cover off. Before I do, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and hit the bell. You get notified of all my future content, which you're definitely going to want to see. Also, check me out on Instagram. All right, let's get into it. Let me show you how to do it. All right, 2008 6.4 Power Stroke. We're going to be pulling off the front cover. We're going to be inspecting it and then pulling it off to reseal it. I'm going to go ahead and just take off the whole front here to make it easy. That way I could just come right in the front and do the front cover. So I'm going to start off. I got to go ahead, and I'm not going to walk you through all of it because it's a lot, but you got to disconnect the cac tubes, take the inner cooler out. You're going to have to loosen up the cac tube here also. And then you got to take the radiator hoses off. You got to recover the coolant. You're going to have to, this is transmission fluid, so you're going to have to put plugs in your hoses and stuff. You're going to have the refrigerant here. The power steering cooler, I believe, just pulls off to the side. You got a secondary cooling system here. I believe I just leave this in place. I don't think I ever disconnect this one. We're going to have to take the horns off, and we're going to be removing this whole cross brace here. So you're going to take your latch off. And then we got to get, that'll allow us to be able to move the radiator. You got to unbolt the radiator here because it bolts here. Then you got to take off the upper fan shroud, and there's a whole bunch of clips holding a bunch of different sensors and hoses to it. You're going to have to take it off. I believe it's like 2 bolts on one side and 1 or 2 on the other side. You got to undo the power steering reservoir here because it attaches to it. You just got to move it out of the way. You got to disconnect your radiator hoses and get this fan shroud out, and then we'll get the radiator out. We're going to get all these coolers out, and then I'll walk you through what we're going to do as soon as I get this whole front off. All right, here we go. Got everything off here. So you can see I leave the lower hose there. Leave all this here. You're going to just unbolt this auxiliary water pump here from the fan shroud and leave it in place. The lower fan shroud comes out with the radiator. I'm just going to lay all this just like it is here. You got your power steering cooler just over here, and everything else disconnected. All the transmission lines and the refrigerant hose is here. The other one with the high side port, I went ahead and disconnected it here just to get it out of the way. Now we got to get the fan shroud off and get this stator off. The fan shroud is left-hand thread, so you're going to tighten it to take it off. And the other thing you see is that I also took off this charge air pipe that comes around here. Just make sure that you lay that on top of your brace that comes across here, because one time I put one of these together and I forgot to put that back in, so I had to take the brace back off. And it is kind of a bitch to do that. So, all right, let me get this fan shroud out of here, and let me get this stator out of here. Don't forget to disconnect your electrical connector right there. And we're gonna get to the front of this engine. All right, fan shroud's off. So now we're gonna go ahead and take the belt off. We gotta take all the accessory pulleys off. It's got 2 belts, so we gotta get all that off. And we're gonna pop this water pump off and see if there's any cavitation in there. If there's cavitation, then you're gonna have to replace your front cover when you pull it off. All right, let's go. All right, so here we go. We got the water pump off. So all I did was take out the 310s for the power steering pump. And right here, there's a nut with a stud that goes through that secures these 2 lines. I just moved it so I could maneuver this out of the way to get the water pump out. So what you can see is worst case scenario is the front cover is cavitating, and that will eat right through to the oil passage, and then you'll get coolant in the oil, and it will destroy this engine if you don't take care of it. So this one needs a front cover, so there's that. And so now we got to disconnect a whole lot of stuff to get this front cover off. You got to take the thermostats out. We got to undo this Egr Cooler right here. So you got 2 bolts here. You got some connectors. You got an EGR coolant hose right there. And right there at the flange, you have gaskets there. And this whole EGR cooler is going to come out the front. We got to take these two clamps off right here. And then this EGR cooler is going to lift and pull straight out the front. And we got to disconnect the lower hose right there. We got a bunch of coolant hoses connections. There's a coolant connection here. There's a coolant connection right there. There's a coolant connection right there. You got to get all of these off. Take the balancer off so we can get this front cover off. All right, let me start taking some of this stuff apart. Okay, so for this EGR cooler, what I did was just take out the bolts. This one here is an 8mm 12-point bolt. This is a stud with a 13mm nut. And then down here, you have a stud and two 12mm nuts. You're just gonna undo all that. You gotta take this hose clamp off and get this hose off the cooler, all right? And then there's another hose right here. Don't touch this hose clamp or this one. You gotta take this off anyways. So we're just gonna take this out of the front cover, and the whole EGR cooler, this whole front EGR cooler and this pipe are gonna come out together, and that way we don't have to mess with it. That way we don't have to mess with the hose clamps. All right, and then we're gonna be taking off the bracket for the EGR cooler. I probably could have just taken off the bracket bolts and taken the whole thing with me, which is probably what you should do. But anyways, let me get this cooler out of here. All right, EGR cooler is off. I went ahead and popped the thermostats out to get those out of the way. It's super easy. 4/8 right here. All right, next we got to disconnect all these coolant pipes. Remember, these are plastic. They're composite. They will break. So I'm going to disconnect. I got a bolt here and a bolt here. We're going to just disconnect this pipe and move it out of the way. It's attached to a heater hose and also to the degas bottle right there. All right. Then we got this one here. This goes to the heater hose back there. A little more tricky on this one. Hopefully it just lifts right up. We're going to just undo the 8 here. This is just an elbow that stays here. Then we got to disconnect this pipe here and take the balancer off. All right, let me get all this done and we'll get down to the cover. One little tip is right there, there's a flange. I'm gonna put my flashlight on it right there. All right, there's an 8mm bolt right there that bolts the other part of this pipe there. So go ahead and undo that, and then you should be able to get this off. So what I like to do is put a flathead screwdriver. I put a flathead screwdriver like this, and then I wiggle the pipe. I'm not gonna do it, it takes 2 hands. But then I wiggle the pipe while I have the flathead screwdriver, and I just keep working it, and it will come out. And that's how I got this one out. This one, just be careful, it's plastic. This one, I gotta see if there's another bracket back here, because this one is not one to lift up more than that. And that is not enough to get it out. All right, next step is gonna be, so I was able to get this up and out of the way. It's kind of tricky, you're gonna have help. It barely lifts up. In the picture from Ford, they show you holding it up with like a wire, but you can't, there's no way, it's up against here. But anyways, it does come out, just be real careful, it's plastic. Also, before you put your cover on, make sure you replace this O-ring, because you can't do it once the cover's in. The next step we're gonna do is we're gonna take the oil pump off, the oil pump housing. It's 11 bolts. There's like outside bolts here, outside bolts here. So we're gonna pop this housing off, and then we're gonna take the inner and outer rotors of the oil pump out. All right, let me get this housing off. Right here, there's a spot right here where you can put, I like to use this guy right here, real thin tool. There's the part number. Not sure the brand, but I bought it from Snap-on, but I'm pretty sure Snap-on doesn't make it. Also a spot right here, and you can just slowly walk it off because it's got a seal in it. So it's gonna leak oil, so make sure you have a catch pan. All right, let me get this off. All right, and then now we gotta slide these two guys off right here, okay? They're just gonna slide off, they're notched. I'm gonna keep them together, keep, you know, which one goes where, and there's a notch right here, so just make sure you keep them together, and then we're gonna get this cover off. Get all these bolts out. All right, here we go, 10 bolts, and we're ready to come out. Cover's loose. Just be real careful when you slide it over the crank. All right, let me get this out and get everything cleaned up and wait to see if we're gonna be selling the cover. This is gonna be tough to get out of here with that pipe. Well, I'm gonna have to be creative here. Be real careful with this pipe. Mine's not really wanting to move. And I'm wondering if I'm supposed to unbolt something over here to allow it to move. I'm gonna have to look. I don't think I can get to anything over there. All right, let me check that first. I'll let you know. All right, so for that pipe there, you got, I took this air intake tube out. You got a nut here. Unfortunately, my stud has stayed with the nut, so I gotta get that detached. And then right back here is another bolt. And then we'll be able to move this whole pipe assembly. Unfortunately, I can't move it because it's stuck in a hole. I'm gonna see if I can lift it up out of this hole here. But that's how you get it and be able to move it so we can get the cover out. All right, let me figure out how I'm gonna get that off. All right, well, trying to lift this up. Here's what the stud looks like. I tried to lift it up over the stud to move it forward, and it shattered right there. Real brittle. It's real brittle, so I guess if you haven't messed with this in a long time, it's gonna break. But somehow you're supposed to lift it up. I'm sure if you had a nice healthy one, it wouldn't break. Anyways, cover's off, and then now they're on national back order, so now I got to try to figure out how we're going to get one. Sometimes when we take things apart, we don't read all the directions. We kind of skim through. So one of the things that I missed in the repair procedure was you are supposed to remove the heater hose. Well, if you remove the heater hose from the pipe and the bolt that's by the glow plug and the nut that's down by the two sensors on the intake, or right on the down there in the front, if you undo all of those, you're able to move that plastic pipe without breaking it. So had I done all of that, I wouldn't have broken it. So that's how you're supposed to do that pipe the proper way. You're not supposed to lift it up. It doesn't lift up and out of the way. You have to unsecure it over by the glow plug module. All right, so anytime you're dealing with these plastic pipes, if it's an old pipe, it's probably gonna break if you have to move it much. I ended up having to replace it because I broke it right here. So what I had to do to get it in was I had to disconnect the electrical connector for the injectors. I had to disconnect the sensors here. I had to undo there's an exhaust sensor back there. I had to loosen up the PCM harness. And I had to do all of this. And I had to unbolt this accessory bracket here and undo the bolts for the wiring harness so everything can pull out, so the heater hose assembly can come through here. So now I'm gonna leave everything like it is, and I'm gonna wait until my front cover is in, and then I'm gonna drop it down and get it in place and hope everything works. With the new pipe, I should be fine. These things seem to work real well when they're new. So now we gotta clean all this up. We're gonna clean all this up. And now we're trying to source a timing cover because this timing cover is cavitating and they are on national back order. So, all right, well, let me get this all cleaned up, and then we got to do an oil pan and a rear main. All right, so here we go. So we're gonna be getting a used cover. They're gonna pull off the water pump and inspect it, make sure it's not cavitating. And as long as it's not, then I'll be getting a used cover and we'll get it cleaned up and get it on. Everything is off here. I'm cleaning up the bottom real good because I got to do an oil pan and a rear main on this one. So it's looking pretty good. Got some cleanup to do, and we're lifting this thing up. All right, here we go. So to complete this, I got it all clean. We found a used cover that has no cavitation, so we're going to use this cover here. As of right now, there are no rear covers available. So here is the Molly set right here. That's the Molly set, and that comes with everything for the front. Comes with the front gasket for the timing cover and everything for the oil pump. And I'm assuming this is for the thermostats. You got the front seal, and you have your seals for all of your pipes that go in. So, all right, so here's the torque specs for the timing cover and the oil pump. All right, there you go. Okay, so when installing the timing cover, what you want to do, the best advice is you want to find two dowels that you can put in. one around the 10 o'clock position under the top water jacket, and then one down below the oil galley on the timing cover. So you could just find 2 long bolts and cut the heads off, or if you have 2 studs. So put those bolts in. You got to put a dab of silicone about the size of a dime where the upper and lower timing covers meet on both sides. You're going to slide your cover on, your gasket, after you put the silicone. You're going to slide your cover on. You're going to loosely install, I think it's 10 cover bolts. Okay, I like to run them in almost all the way. Then you're going to put your 2 oil pump pieces on. Lubricate the shaft and make sure you put it back where it was. Then you're going to slide your oil pump housing on. And you're going to put all those bolts in. You're going to torque those bolts first. I showed you what those torque specs are. You're going to torque those 2, all the lower bolt, all the oil pump housing bolts first. Then you're going to torque all of the upper timing cover bolts. And that's how you torque the timing cover, and then you put everything back together. All right, so the last bit of advice I'll give you on these 6.4s is when you put back the front of the engine, make sure you really think about it, because everything has to go back exactly perfect. I took one apart and I forgot to put the charge air pipe in before I put the radiator cross brace in, and I had to take it all back apart. So make sure that you got everything in the right way, because to go backwards, it takes a lot of time, and you're going to go backwards a lot. So really think about it before you put everything back together. All right. Alright, so in this video I showed you how to remove everything to gain access to the timing cover. I didn't break everything down as far as the radiator and condenser and all that. It's pretty straightforward the way it comes out. It gave you the tips along the way to get to it. And then also showed you what to look for when you're doing your front cover. If you're removing it to reseal it, I showed you what to look for with the cavitation. Now unfortunately at this time of the video, the timing covers are on national back order. So we've actually got a call into a place trying to get a used one that's in better condition than the one we have. So also showed you how to do the timing cover, how to remove it, and showed you some tips and tricks, and also showed you how to not break the heater hose. It happens. So, but I'm human, so it kind of shows you that, hey, we all make mistakes. So anyways, thanks for checking out the video. Hope you enjoyed it. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and hit the bell. You get notified of all my future content, which you're definitely going to want to see. Also check me out on Instagram at Nuts and Bolts with Tone for my daily life as a mechanic. Check out my merchandise store where you can get a t-shirt, coffee cup. Support Nuts and Bolts with Tone's channel. Thanks for checking out the video. See you next time.